Welcome to Pigeon River Farm, doing farming right. I'm Robert Brown, the owner of Pigeon River Farm. Thank you for viewing. Hello, in this episode we're going to discuss starting your own homestead farm. I have some experience along these lines. I actually grew up on a mid-sized farm in southeastern Wisconsin. We had vegetable, beef, and poultry operation growing up, plus multiple family and neighbor farms that I worked on. So I had a lot of experience on my years growing up on a farm. It was a great experience. The lifestyle was unbelievable. So later on, I moved off the home farm. It got taken over by other family members, and I went on to enjoy a career. I had a farmette. I bought a farmette immediately, so I never actually lived off of a farm. Had a small farm, and I had pursued a career in engineering and education, both. So I spent many years in a research engineering position and many years as an educator. But my dream of having a sustainable organic farm never really left. Having a small farm in a quasi-urban area we were being encroached on, we realized that at some point that wasn't going to last, and then of course the subdivisions started to form. And what we did is we ended up moving up to central Wisconsin, where there was no chance of any urban sprawl ever occurring. So we went ahead and moved up to central Wisconsin, actually where a lot of my wife's relatives live. And we homesteaded a piece of property. We simply took 50 acres of land and turned it into a viable farm. Literally, we bought 50 acres that was in foreclosure. The farm had the existing farm there had fallen on hard times. It was simply 50 acres of raw land that was overgrown with weeds, and it was exactly what I wanted. It was right on a river area, river basin, a really good quality soil. So that was one of the first deciding factors when we were looking for land, was to determine that the soil was sustainable for what our goal was. And that's something that's many times people overlook. They're looking for inexpensive, and expensive is good. They want to spend a pile of money, but the flip side of it is if you don't buy productive soil, you'll struggle forever. You could take, mediocre soil over enough time, so it's a time factor. Low quality soil can be enhanced over, say, a decade, but we wanted to start out with a better quality soil. And then we also were concerned about existing farm infrastructure. Now, that's good and bad. We didn't find what we wanted that already had buildings on it, and there are some concerns of property that is already an existing farmstead. And one of the biggest concerns is toxic chemicals. Through the last century, a lot of toxic chemicals were used, and that can be a negative. That can actually be a pretty significant negative. So we found this 50 acres. It wasn't quite what I was looking for as far as size, but the productivity was so excellent. So we purchased it, and then a long process took place. Now, it was 50 acres of raw land. That means I had to put buildings up. I had to put well, septic, ultimately a home. I found a few tricks along the way. I guess maybe I didn't find them. I knew about them. And this will depend grossly on where you set up. More rural the better. You got a lot of the dynamics taking place with local government. But we did is we simply put up a really nice high quality building. I can't even call it a pole shed, but it's got poured foundation and all that in it. And then we put a camper in it. That was our temporary living conditions as we were currently selling our existing farmette that we had and doing the transition. So we produced living accommodations. So we put a building up, we put a well in, we put a septic. So them were our three upfront costs. So the building had two purposes. One, it was heated, and it provided a place for the camper and for all the equipment that we needed to move up here from our existing farm. Additionally, we have a well. We chose a well. We spent some real money. One of the best investments you can make, depending on what part of the country, and And we're actually in a very wet area, so we get good rainfall, dependable rainfall, so irrigation is less needed. But we needed a high capacity well. We needed something that wasn't going to be a little slouch because we had planned on putting high tunnels up, so we knew we'd be irrigating there. We envisioned expanding our cattle herd out, so they consume a lot of water, as I've talked about in previous videos. So these are all things that you really have to consider. So the cost of a well, in our case here, this was done quite a few years ago. We did this whole process back in 2002. We purchased the land and started the full transition. The cost of the well at the time for a quality well was around $6,000. So that can go very high in some areas. I know some areas where you have to put very, very deep wells. Ours is 150 feet. You go to the extremely deep wells, they can cost $10,000, $15,000. So it's something you have to budget in right up front. Also septic. Septic is something that is a real challenge since we settled here in a river valley, and Wisconsin is very tough environmentally. Now it's good news and bad news. It serves both. And on the bad news part of it, it was very expensive. We couldn't get a conventional septic, so we were really required to go with a mound system. That was one of our biggest expenses that I didn't see a return on investment. We saw excellent return on investment with our well, but in the case of the mound system, it was almost $15,000, and it doesn't do much. We were hoping to get a conventional septic that normally ranges $5,000 to $7,000. So another thing you have to decide in when you're coming along and building, homesteading. The next thing is we put up a building. We decided to put up a quality building. Now, grant you, we came at this with a little bit of money. That helped a lot. So if you have some seed money, but we could have done it on a lot less. We just decided to go with a little better infrastructure. From the top, things that you need to remember. One is the quality of the land is absolutely paramount. That is probably the number one. So do your research, learn about soils, learn about soil conditions, what the history of that farmland was. So that's one thing we did. Our farm, the last time any conventional farming had taken place was 1999. So we knew that we would be able to get it organic certified. We knew that we did research, found out the past farmers that had operated the land, and they all had a very good reputation. So our risk was very low on it being toxified. Now, moving forward, that was back in 2002. 18 years into the future here, you got to figure that the pounds of glyphosate that are used every year on soil. So every bit of conventional farmland out there is deteriorated from that point. So it's a thing you need to look at very carefully of the actual cost that you're going to be entailing trying to bring that soil back up to performance, even if it's a good quality soil to start with. So them are things that are very, very critical. Once you have some type of an infrastructure set up where you can actually start the activity, and you need to come up with a plan. You really have to have a plan from the beginning, but we have to really look at how you're going to expand out. In our case here, we're very rural, so we have no local market, or very limited local market. But we can produce products that are distributed throughout the state, and there's good transportation. That's one thing you have to look at where you do settle. Make sure there's adequate highway systems. Even though you want to stay very rural, the one advantage is of having some type of highway system for transportation is critical. We're only about 7 miles from a state highway that takes medium truck traffic. So that was a benefit to us. Then we have to look at what you want to do. Things that have really worked for us. We did a vegetable operation. We were a grower for Organic Valley, so we did winter squash and we did beets. So the vegetable end of it was actually relatively profitable, but too labor intensive. I would highly recommend vegetables. It's a great starting enterprise. It also gives you the ability, when you start with vegetables, really should be for younger people, especially if you have a family that can participate. The obvious joke is Myself and a 8-year-old have about the same potential hoeing a weedy row. So you got to put that in perspective. Kids can be really beneficial, and I was between adult kids, and now we have the grandkids that are helping a lot on the farm. But there was that transition there, and it was pretty much just wife and I handling all the activities. So that's another thing to really give some strong thought to, is what your needs are going to be far as labor for the enterprise you undertake. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about a variety of different enterprises that you can undertake and what the profitability. I've got a lot of experience from vegetables to beef to poultry and kind of everything in between. Cash crop, run most every type of equipment. So I'm going to show you some of the ways that you can make a decision on what crop you want to raise or what product you want to produce, and some recommendations on cost-effective equipment. So thank you, and we'll see you in the next episode.